Hi everyone. I'm so excited to see so many of you here today attending this workshop and also privileged to be sharing this platform with my esteemed colleagues. I too am a healthcare professional as well as an educator. I lecture at SACAP on various psychological subjects, and in my private practice I work a lot with parents of trans individuals. Less often with trans individuals themselves, but I do have the privilege of working with some. And then also work with many other individuals who are dealing with some form of trauma or crisis in their life. Today, however, I'm going to elaborate on our work with parents, looking briefly at the role of parents in relation to their trans child, as well as the challenges that parents face in this regard. I hope no one minds, but my talk is very much going to be based on a more personal perspective combined with clinical aspects. On this basis, then, let me start off with my personal journey and what brought me to working with trans families. My journey in working with parents was kick-started when I myself was confronted with a family member who came out as trans over 15 years ago. At that time, there was very little support available for the trans individual and even less for parents. To cut a long story short, after many trials and tribulations, I got together with the Liesl Tehran and Gender Dynamics in its infancy at the time and started a parent support group. Since then, I've taken on the responsibility of running the support group in a private capacity. This journey then inspired me to not only want to know more about transgender, but for the sake of this family member, try and become an expert on the subject. And in so doing, I will be able to support him and my family in the best possible way that I could. In exploring and researching the literature, I realized that most of it spoke to the needs of trans individuals and very little to the needs of the parents and other family members. There was very little information available about the process for parents and no confirmation or validation of if and what parents were feeling was appropriate or even normal. With this lack of information and lack of support that my family were feeling, I decided to go ahead and complete a master's degree on this exact subject. The focus of my thesis was on the trauma that parents experience when their child transitions. At the time I did this thesis, as I mentioned, there was very little academic literature to support my research question. So consequently, I had to rely very heavily on the richness of the data I got from the lived experiences of my study subjects, the parents, as well as my own family's lived experience. I conducted a number of interviews with at least one parent, if not both of the parents of a trans child who had either transitioned already, was in the process of transitioning, or had just come out to their parents. I also interviewed grandparents who happened to be the primary caregiver of a trans individual, siblings, as well as the trans individuals themselves. The reason I interviewed not only the parents was because I wanted to know, as a matter of interest, and Simon touched on this in his presentation, if the siblings and the trans children had different interpretations or understandings of what their parents' support of them was, as well as the journey of their parents, if they were aware of what the journey was for their parents. The ages of the trans individuals varied from the age of 4 to as old as 45 years of age. I learned so much and gathered so much information and experience during that time. And this journey has brought me to the place and the person I am today. I often say to my family member, whenever the opportunity allows me, thank you for being unique, for being brave enough to come out and be who you are, and in so doing, teach us all and contribute to who I am today. I could not have done it without you. In working with parents, I've realized that when it comes to transitioning, it is not only the child that transitions, but the whole family, including extended family, school, work, and even social groups that transition. It does not happen in a vacuum or isolation. It is a collective and collaborative journey. This observation is also strongly supported and explained by the ecological systems theory as proposed by Uri Bronfenbrenner. It offers a framework through which many psychologists can and do examine individuals' relationships within nuclear families, communities, and the wider society. In essence, the various systems that form the whole. The key concept of this theory, regardless of which discipline it's being applied to, is that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. What this means is that when holistically examining how smaller systems come together to affect the greater complex system, certain characteristics of the whole, the complex system, cannot be easily explained or rationalized when looking singularly at any one of its systems or its parts. The system as a whole affects the parts, as does the parts affect the whole. So am I applying this concept then to the transition process? It makes sense, and for me emphasizes the fact that family, friends, school, work, and so on are all an integral part of and very much contribute to the well-being and success of the trans individual. And on this basis, for me, it is as imperative for the trans individual to know what the process is about for their parents as it is for the parents to know about the child's process. To not only focus on their own journey and their journey alone, but to know what their parents' challenges are and where they need to support and assist, or where their parents need their support from the trans child and the greater community. It is important to remind them that everyone is on the journey. They may be at a different point or take different path, but it is still a collective journey with the same goal and end in mind, the well-being of the transgender child. And the process can only be successful if everyone is on board and everyone is taken into consideration. In working with parents, I found that initially they are mostly resistant and kick up against the process. And it is easy to make the mistake of assuming, and many of the trans children often do, that the parents are against this process, that they are closed-minded and uncooperative. And sometimes, I suppose, some of them are, but even then, only for a while. More often than not, it is just a facade or protection of their own personal issues they are busy confronting. In essence, it's their intense fear of the unknown, their lack of knowledge, fear of rejection by family and friends, and for the well-being of their child that propels them to resist. For example, when confronting the prospect of hormones or blockers, or even surgery, parents at first don't want to know anything about it. They may refuse to even talk about it, or give all the reasoning in the world why it will not and should not happen. But as the therapist, I look past that. I know that more often than not, it is not the hormones or the surgery that they are kicking up against, but their fears and concerns for the safety and care of their child, the possible financial burden that this will place on the family, and the inability to verbalize these concerns. And sometimes they don't even realize what those are. Of course, every parent only wants what is best for their children. We want our children to be happy, but not at what seems to us to be such a huge price. No parent wants their child to have to rely on hormones for the rest of their lives, undergo surgery, be discriminated against, possibly bullied or rejected. Life in general is hard enough. They don't want their children to experience extra pain and heartache as they see it. They more often than not see it very differently from their child. Unlike their perception, for the trans person, this is their liberation, their freedom, and a very small price to pay for the ability to live as their true selves. So right from the start, there is this disconnect. On this basis then, for me, it is important that both the parents and the child are aware of each other's challenges and where precisely they are at, because when they understand what each other's fears and feelings are, and what exactly it is they are going through, they can be more supportive of each other and therefore feel supported. So for me, it's a win-win situation for all parties. What we tend to forget is that these parents have had a son or a daughter for however many years. They have invested in this child, their hopes and dreams for them, nurtured them through every setback, taken time to choose the name of the child, build up all these memories over the years with this child, and then suddenly, and it honestly seems like overnight, everything just changes. They have to suddenly forget all about the past, bury the pictures, get rid of the clothing, and call this child by a different name, use different pronouns. For some parents, this is really hard. For some, it may be they don't want to let go. And for others, it's the familiarity of it all, the traditions, the difficulty of having to get used to these different pronouns, the new identity, and the challenging of the binary of gender. At some stage, one even feels as though you have a stranger in your house. You wonder how you can love and hate this person, this child, all at the same time. And I'll never forget when our family member transitioned. It felt like such an invasion to all of us. It felt as though they're being so selfish by placing this on all of us as family members. And I always thought I was a very liberal, open-minded, accepting individual. In fact, I still believe that I am. In fact, I encourage difference. I'm an activist for change and acceptance. But, when it comes to you and your family, when it touches your heart and your soul, somehow it takes on a different meaning. And everything inside of you just tells you to resist. And this is even after accepting the situation. One keeps going back there and resisting because you don't want this for your child. You don't want your child to go through this pain, to go through this possible isolation, possibly never getting married, possibly never finding a partner. All of these concerns and worries makes one resist. Why would one behave in this manner? Why would we treat our children like this? Why would we not allow our children to verbalize these things? The point I'm making here is that as a supportive liberal parent and as a family member myself, I still needed to reach the point for me to come to the realization that this is not about me or us. It's not about our fears or our losses, but it's about the child. It's about the parent and their child. We are grown-ups. We are mothers. We are sisters. We are aunties. We are cousins. It's our responsibility to ensure that the child is happy and that he or she is the best version of themselves, even if that means giving up certain parts of yourself. It's their life now, and we have no right to dictate what that life must be. It's our hopes and our dreams that we are losing, not that of our child. Why am I sharing this with you? Because I want to demonstrate to you that no matter how accepting our parents may be, they still have the initial fears and challenges. They are human and they have their weaknesses and their strengths. But the good thing is that they too will reach that point when they realize it's not about them. It's not about their loss. It's not about their loss of hopes, their dreams, their expectations for this child. But it's about the life of their child. We as counsellors just have to facilitate that journey for them and give them time to get to that point by themselves. The result of my research validated so many of the feelings and emotions I experienced during my interviews with the parents. Seeing myself and my family members in so many of them, noticing how afraid they were for their child, for the possible rejection they may face. Would they ever find love? Will they turn around and say they made a mistake? And then the tremendous loss that each and every one of them relate to me. Realizing that we all have many fears and challenges. It is so important as therapists to validate these feelings and emotions in parents, allowing them time to mourn, letting them verbalize their fears and concerns, even if they sound irrational. I promise you, very few parents are going to remain resistant and unsupportive. Most parents come round and become supportive. Loss, as mentioned, is a huge challenge, more so for the moms than for the dads. Encourage them to speak about this loss. Ask them to define that loss. What is it that they mourn? But being careful not to minimize or be dismissive of their feelings. Ask them to take a moment and consider what it is they want for their child and from their child, and what it will take from them to make that happen. Even if it means banking those memories, storing away those family pictures, coming to terms with that name, seeing their child in that name, and so on. Normalizing their loss and helping them find a way to deal with it and move on. When it eventually comes down, what it eventually comes down to for them is the realization that it is their hopes, their dreams, their expectations that we all, as parents, place on our children. These children who made us no promises when they were born, that they were ever going to keep them. That is what we have lost. It is not our child. They're still exactly the same person, just a better form, a better expression of that child. To realize that a parent's love should always be unconditional. And if it is unconditional, then should we not place the responsibility of life, hopes, and dreams onto that child? Give them their autonomy, as scary as it is, and let them live. Help them to fulfill their hopes and their dreams, and not ours. Once a parent realizes this and has managed to educate themselves and finds other parents who can validate their concerns, fears, and challenges, even the most ardent resistors usually turn and become very supportive parents and family members. We don't have to tell parents what their role is. They know. They just need a little nudge, a small reminder, and they are on their way. There's no better and stronger ally than parents for trans children. And it's therefore imperative that this realization and metamorphosis happens for the parents as soon as possible. Having said that though, parents still need to talk and to share, and that is why I find the parents' evenings so helpful and special. They still need that safe space because they end up taking on additional roles on behalf of their trans child, that of defender, protector, advocate, and even activist. And as we know, those come with their own set of challenges. On this basis, they still need assurance, validation, and confirmation that they're doing okay as trans parents and that their children have got it. They can navigate this path of diversity together. I've tried to focus on some of the more important aspects, but these are by no means the only challenges that parents face, and their roles in the transition process and the stability of the trans child. But unfortunately, I need to be cognizant of time restraints. Thank you for listening and for allowing me the time to share just some of my knowledge and my experiences as a family member and a therapist with you. Thank you.